Hello, and welcome back to another encouraging, inspiring, and including episode of the Achieving Unity Leadership System weekly podcast, the dialogue where we help turn complexity into execution, chaos into connection, and our purposes into action. I am your host, Mark Entrekin, founder of the Achieving Unity Leadership System, available at www.achievingunity.com. It is dedicated to all leaders, personally and professionally, to improving their lives, their family life, and their business life. We must remember that unity is not a soft skill. It is a leadership discipline. Unity, like leadership, is not emotional. It is intentional. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Maricela Campa to the Achieving Unity Leadership System podcast. Today's guest is a bilingual mental health advocate, a family consultant, trauma support specialist, educator, and mental health minister. Marcelo brings professional knowledge and lived family experience to an important conversation about awareness, access, resilience, cultural understanding, and hope. But first, before we dive into this insightful dialogue, let me briefly introduce my company, Reality Focused Dynamics, where it all began. You can see on the first slide, Achieving Unity Leadership System podcast, we talk about real conversations for leaders navigating division, frustration, and change. Because sometimes it seems that leadership is harder than it should be. Sometimes disconnection is growing. Frustration is draining the people and the teams. Good intentions are colliding with some of the real world pressures. So again, unity is not a soft skill. It is a leadership strategy. What do we mean by achieving unity? That means encouraging progress without enabling dysfunction. We want to make sure everyone is clear. Communication. We'll make sure that everyone is inspiring action without forcing agreement. Because with the achieving unity process, we listen, we hear, and we carry that forward. We include voices while maintaining accountability. But we want to make sure that we're listening to everyone, but everyone must be accountable and responsible. We are building better businesses, better lives, and a better world, one conversation at a time. Again, I am your host, Mark Entrekin, founder of Reality Focused Dynamics and the Achieving Unity Leadership System. I work with leaders, teams, and families, navigating conflict, navigating change and complexity, helping us all move forward with clarity through unity and sustainable action. We do that by being focused. When we're focused, we're facilitating on clear, unified, sustainable execution and delivery. And yes, those are the letters to focus. Because if we are not focused, where are we? Well, if we go to the next slide, let's walk through each of the letters of focused and let's see what it means. Well, the F stands for facilitate or facilitating. It's tough conversations that build trust. And it's on common ground and shared purpose with clear communication and agreements. We'll be unified actions across differences. We will be sustainable, which means results that last. Have execution that's consistent, responsible actions that we follow each and every day, or delivery. That delivery is inspired growth and lasting change. So I hope you have contact with us. Let's promote within ourselves, our companies, with our communities, our social life, clear, unified, sustainable action, and let's start now. Reach out to explore my coaching, courses, workshops, or speaking engagements to promote unity leadership. Give me achievingunity.com. And I mentioned 303 focused, 303-362-8733. If you look at your phone now, as you press those numbers, you'll see it spells 303 focused, because we're achieving unity as the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and lasting change. Because in today's world of uncertainty, unity is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. And again, this is a weekly podcast, so we hope you have it on your calendar. Next week, Dr. Tank Nang will be talking to us about preparing the next generation. What are we seeing coming up? We see all the things in IT, information technology. What about in the health field? What are we going to see growing forward for our next generation? The next week, August 19th, Daniel Aaron. All the leadership we have, we can't forget about spiritual leadership. Daniel will be here to talk to us about that. The next week, Sharon Ray will be here. Mental wellness, routines, and structure. That's on August 26th. The week after that, Marla Press will be back to talk about masculinity and femininity, not versus, how they work together. Again, that's on September 9th. So please put us on your calendar. Come back every week. Would love to see you again. And here's my QR code. Go check out my site, entrekin.com. Take a picture. Take a picture of this to your telephone. Get back in touch with me whenever you can. Anytime you have a question, want to talk more about the coaching, consulting, speaking, workshops, training, let's talk. Let's get together and take it to that next level. And here are the big QR codes. These are from Maricela. Learn about Maricela Campa from the QR code on the left. She got a website down there, catholicmhm.org. Then on the right, on that QR code, you get her email, maricela.campa02@gmail.com. So communicate with her. Take a picture of this slide. Get in connection and communicate going forward. So let's talk about her just a little bit. We're excited to welcome Maricela Campa. She is an MAEd, a family consultant, mental health advocate, trauma support specialist, and bilingual mental health educator who is passionate about empowering individuals, families, and communities through compassionate, trauma-informed care. Drawing on more than 12 years of experience in mental health advocacy and education, Maricela provides culturally responsive strategies that foster resilience, reduce stigma, and increase access to meaningful support, the support that we all need. Her work helps communities create environments where hope, healing, and connection can thrive. Please help me welcome Maricela Campa.
Hi, Mark.
Maricela, how are you? How are you today?
I am doing great. I'm here sitting with you. This is a great day.
Thank you so much for being here. It's just awesome. I love the work that you do and how you reach out to more people to help us grow in ways that a lot of us haven't grown in so much. So if you don't mind, take a minute, introduce yourself, share with us a little bit about who you are, how your personal and professional journey led you into mental health advocacy, and maybe a little bit about the commitments you have for this work.
Yes. Well, I'd like to start by saying that I am a mother. I'm a mother to a wonderful girl, my daughter, and yeah, aside from that, I do advocate for families. I'm a family consultant. I meet with families either by phone, in person, meet them where they're at. We have conversations, meaningful conversations. I always like to say that they are conversations that matter, whatever they're going through. So I loved looking at what focused means. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of alignment there with the
There
work,
is.
that a leader, it does. And so a
Thank
lot of my
you.
time goes to accompany people, families, Um, but certainly there's a lot of support and accompaniment that I do for my own family and within my own family, including my parents. So part of that lived experience is that there is a lot of knowledge because of that lived experience within my own family. So we all have a little bit of work to do within our own nuclear family.
That we do, and that's great that you talk about that because we have to start with ourselves first. We're not taking care of ourselves, not focus on ourselves first. It's harder to take care of others and branch out to them and make the relationships all that they can be. What would you share as your number one goal or priority right now that feels most alive and urgent for you? What are you working on most actively?
My own wellness, my own wellness and that of my daughters. Really being very proactive. And we read a lot of guidelines. We're aware. There's a lot of awareness. But there really comes a time where you have to do like a self-evaluation and really sit and ask yourself, where am I right now? Where do I fall in the balance of this wellness wheel that we may be familiar with? And sometimes we can be a little, out of balance. So I find myself searching for those ways to be well.
I like that, Marcelo, because but you do it in such a positive nature. Because some people look at that wheel and they're looking for the negative. Oh, this could be wrong, or this could be wrong. But instead, if we start by this could be right, and if we're doing what right, it's going to trigger more of the right as we go around that wheel, more of the good, and not be searching for something wrong, searching for something else, but instead looking inside ourselves first, right?
And you mentioned that, growth, but we're all a work in progress, which is the beauty of us having, a mind and a brain that we could do that. We could, again, something could have happened, but then we're able to come back, reflect, and then, make a decision. What's my trajectory going forward? So that has passed, that has happened. But I also, want to remind us that a lot of times we can't do that alone. Introspection is important and it's necessary. And sometimes we do need somebody else to come alongside us to be able to help us and support us.
That is so true. I love what you're saying. And it's great when you have that someone that you can depend on. Someone wants to be there, someone that you can turn to.
Yeah.
It just makes the life so much better.
Which
Well,
speaks
help
to the
me out.
unity.
Unity. Beautiful. Thank you so much for saying that. What can meaningful accompaniment look like for individuals, for families, as well as people at the office?
I think it really is meeting people where they're at. You have to meet them. And what does that mean? Well, it's where the person who is either reaching out for support or you notice that they may need some type of support, don't try to push them and move them from where they're at right now. You need to meet them where they're at, you know, listen to them non-judgmentally. What do they have going on? What do they actually want to share with you? It takes time to build trust. But once you're able to build that trust and that person wants to share with you, then you're able to better support. But really it's meeting people where they find themselves.
That is excellent. That's such a, you mentioned the balance earlier, that you can balance those things out to know where each of you are in that accompaniment. That where are you building together and allowing that, as you're mentioning, that understanding that
Mhm.
creates the balance.
I think naturally we often go into conversations or encounters with others, wanting to fix something or someone, and we ought to get better as a skill because it is a skill that can be learned, to meet people where they're at, instead of wanting to fix someone. We're quick to say, "I already have a solution for that. If you only do this, then you wouldn't find yourself in this situation, or you can get out of the situation." But without permission, from the person who you're sitting with and accompanying, um, you should really come in first as a listener, and that's an important part of accompanying.
That is true, and I like that part of what you're saying. As I work with often, is that ability to listen first. Listen in dialogue. That is
Yeah.
so important in what we do. And as you talk about listening, how can language in our cultures and faith and stigma affect that access to our support?
Well, I think that sometimes it could be a barrier. Language itself could potentially be a barrier. Um, our faith, our differences could be a barrier. Whether we consciously make that decision already or subconsciously, it could be a barrier for many of us as we're trying to, to support somebody else. Um, Stigma is a big barrier because if we're talking about mental health specifically, there is stigma that surrounds mental illness, mental disorders, and open having open conversations about this, personally and in the workplace. So there's a lot of fear of being judged, of there's embarrassment, and some people carry shame of sharing their story. So again, that's why it's important to come in as a listener, and listening non-judgmentally, which is also a skill that can be learned. Um, but it takes a little bit of practice to get there.
It really does. And I wanted to compliment you, congratulate you. I keep wanting to learn another language, and you're bilingual. I love
Yes.
that. That's so impressive that people put the time into it because some of the struggles that I had during high school when I could have taken another language was forms of judgment. I don't learn their language, which is not their process. It's the ability, as you were mentioning, for us all to communicate. And if I wanted to communicate better, shouldn't I, wouldn't I learn someone else's language as they have learned ours?
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned, the common ground. There are many things that are universal, that is a universal language. Music is one of them. So it's also finding common ground. If right now our communication, because of language itself, speaking different languages is a little bit of a barrier, what do we have it as a common ground? So I think that that's another way to kind of overcome that barrier and even that fear. And ultimately, our smiles, our nonverbal communication, also matters a lot when it comes to communication, not just the language barrier.
That is so true. There are so many things that doesn't require a language, but then even as I talk about it, it's a situation of we expect everyone to know as I mentioned, our language, where our language might be, instead of us reaching out like I didn't do in high school, but to reach out and learn other languages. I could have learned Spanish, I could have learned French, but I didn't. I didn't have that knowledge, that learning, that culture that said that it was good. But yet, so many other countries outside of the United States, it's normal, it's natural, it's promoted. How does that start? Do you have any idea?
I don't. You know what came to mind though when as you were speaking, I was like, I kind of gave it a chance to learn Italian using
Yeah.
Duolingo, one of those
Mhm.
platforms. So, when we have an openness to learn, to genuinely want to learn about somebody else's culture, their traditions, we have so many things that are accessible now than before, to be able to learn another language, which I think is wonderful. I got good streaks on Duolingo with Italian. I tried
Uh,
using it when I visited Rome, but they also spoke English or Spanish. That so I tried. I
we
tried.
Congratulations. That's actually, I did that. I was in Mexico for one winter back in 2022, 23. And that was the worst part. I did learn a little Spanish, but I always turned to Google Translate so often. That's how I communicated with the lady that was cleaning my condo, was with Google. And we didn't know how to communicate at first. We did it through smiles and talking, but then someone mentioned to me about it. Use Google Lingo, Google Translator.
Yeah.
And we started doing that. And it was fun at first. And we both started laughing because, of course, it doesn't translate it exactly, but it was kind of fun. But it opened up a lot of communication for us to be able to have that unity in conversation, right?
I think it shows the respect. And what I've learned is um, being the child of primarily Spanish speaking parents growing up, what they really appreciate is the effort, the effort and the respect. That even though we speak a different language, you're being patient with me. I'm trying to communicate with you the best way that I can, and you're showing me respect. And I often would hear my parents, and still that they just that's what they really want. They want to be respected, and respect our differences because of our human dignity. So that I think you using a Google Translator, it really shows your effort and you're wanting to genuinely communicate with somebody else.
Thank you. I appreciate that because it was something that we could both do. We both had our smartphones, both could use it, and it brought the unity in for us. So it helped us both get to where we needed to be by working together. It worked out well. How do we understand sometimes, Maricela, when we have a difference between supporting someone and helping someone or diagnosing them, perhaps?
A lot of the work that I am not a licensed clinician. Um, I've gone through a lot of training and formation with regards to, mental health,
Sure.
abuse, a lot of these topics that are really, hard conversations, tough discussions that you may have with someone. But when you're trying to support somebody, it's important to recognize that you're not coming in again as a fixer. That you're not coming in, but some of us struggle with that. Some of us, and I'll say this, because we tend to use it like a savior complex, that I'm going to save somebody. When in reality, support is, again, listening to somebody, and then understanding what the need is. Okay, what is the need right now? The most pressing need. Asking for permission. Can I, join you where you find yourself right now? And what is one thing that would be helpful to you? Because I might already be thinking of 10 things, but what if the one thing that I want to support is not the most, helpful to that person? So really putting it back on that person because they're the expert in their life. They do need some support, but they're going to be able to tell you. And if they don't know at the moment that you're asking, what is the best way to support you? At least they know that somebody's willing to, walk alongside them and join them when they're ready. So I would say it's really just, again, remembering that you're not coming in here all the time to fix something, rather to join them and together, find the solution, find the resource, and, not leave that person alone if they need ongoing support.
I love what you're saying. And one of the things you said earlier, too many times, and you're right, we go in and think we're going to save someone or save something, save it somehow, when we may see that as a need for being saved, the other person may not. They may find that more of a detriment to their own knowledge, their own culture, right? It's who are we to decide that someone else needs saved if, as you mentioned, they're not asking for it, if we don't know that there's a joint unity in being saved or saving someone else, right?
It's important to, again, recognize that that individual, what comes to my mind is somebody who needs the support, whatever they're struggling with or whatever is most challenging at the moment. Um, that in that moment, what happens to many of us is that we can get flooded with a lot of emotions, and we don't reach the parts that are our rational, thinking and our rational brain, and that for many of us is momentary. So in that moment, I just can't reach those parts. myself. So why don't I use your brain right now? Why don't you, somebody else come alongside of me? And again, start just kind of talking about it, and really reminding me that I do have the capacity to problem solve. You have solved this before. I've seen you, if there's a closer relationship where you have been witness to them, overcoming situations, you could remind them of that. I've witnessed you, your strength. And I remember you shared something at some point, and I've witnessed how you have, your resiliency, reminding them of their capabilities and their strengths so that they can come back and pick up, on that.
I love what you're saying because as you're mentioning, you're recognizing their strength, complimenting them, encouraging, inspiring, and including others. And that is something that I work with every day in helping people, that
Yeah.
it helps them build what we're doing. And as we talked about, we're not saving anyone, especially that's not asking to be saved, but we're helping them by complimenting them, helping them where they are, where they're going. Because we want to help leaders to create environments where people feel safe asking for help, don't we? We want them to feel that they can ask even minor questions, but to be comfortable asking those questions so that they will ask them and again build that unity and build that growth between two people, right?
I think what's necessary sometimes, where I do believe in the need to have those healthy boundaries, your employer, your work and life balance. There are many conversations, and we don't have to agree on everything, but
Right.
I will say that one of the best ways I think, for us, for leaders, is to be open to um, saying yes a little bit more. Because if that person is wanting to come in and say, I'm struggling with something right now, there's a big challenge, and they don't have to divulge everything, because maybe they don't, there's a lot of laws and HIPAA and things like that, and privacy and confidentiality. But basically saying, if somebody's coming to you and saying there's a big challenge in life right now, and I need to take some time off, I need to focus my time on this, that we say yes to that. And that is going to continue to build trust with your employees. But they don't have to divulge everything of what is happening in their life right now. It's something challenging. It's a stressful situation, and if you trust that they're going to be able to complete and their project and meet a deadline, that is going to speak a lot about that leader, to be able to say yes to them taking care of themselves so that they continue to be. And again, you're looking at their strengths. Yeah, I've seen this employee how they have met deadlines. I've seen this employee how they've completed projects. So if I want to continue to work with their strengths, that should be a part of that conversation.
Yes, I love what you're saying. That's beautiful that you want to, you're saying, continue that conversation. What do you feel are some ways that families can help protect their own resilience when they're in situations where they may be caring for someone they love?
I think stigma plays a big part. It just has, because a lot of these conversations have been so taboo, for so many, in the workplace culture. So again, there's that level of, um, can I trust to share what is really happening without being judged? And am I going to feel supported once I do share what is really happening? And it's a lot of us keep that information to ourselves. We don't want to share a recent diagnosis. We don't want to share what my child is going through. Um, but many more of us should feel that part of healing and support comes with sharing. I'm struggling right now. Something is very challenging, that it's impacting my well-being, and it also is impacting or could potentially impact my work and my other relationships. So the sooner we get connected to support that maybe your employer can't provide, but there's employee assistance programs, or your own, through your own insurance, other support systems, that we have access to those, and we could access those quicker than later.
And then sometimes when I hear that, and again, I appreciate so much about what you said, just talking with you and when we were learning and meeting each other, learning about each other, your attitude and your ideas and the concepts that you take forward in helping others is always, it's touched my heart in so many ways. And that, I guess, so I always come up with how we can help others. It's maybe, are there maybe some practical ways from awareness toward more understanding and more positive action? And then as I ask that, how we're going to be able to help that other person be able to receive that caring and that love in some ways when they may be, as you mentioned, sometimes you need to take time off because you're struggling. I'm asking a lot here, I know, but let's just take it to that one side. When you've got someone that may be struggling, that doesn't take that time off, like you mentioned earlier, you want people to say, yes, if you need time off, take it. But what if there is someone like that? How do you help them when they could benefit from taking some time off and thinking about themselves a little bit more? And always brings up that, for me, the example of being on the airplane. If the oxygen mask comes down and you have two children there with you, who do you
Yeah.
put that oxygen mask on first? Well, you got to put it on yourself because if you can't do what you need to do, you're not going to be able to help your children. So, how can we help others that maybe need to take that little bit of time off without them feeling hurt or negative or, oh no, I can do this, without feeling that macho feeling, but realize that, yes, it would do me some good to take some time off and to think about myself first.
I think one way that we could, you know, do that, if we haven't already done so, is the recognition is important. It is an innate need, that we do want to be recognized for the good work, for the accomplishments, because ultimately, we're doing work that we do like, and it also feeds our families. So we welcome that, right? We want to have that recognition. But I also think that part of recognition should and encouragement should include, I value you for being and not only for doing. It isn't only what you're doing, it's for who you are. And going and bringing it back, and that hopefully helps the person recognize and understand that them stepping away, is okay because I'm valued for who I am, not just for what I'm doing here and what I can, my productivity and what I can accomplish all the time. Because a lot of recognition, revolves around that, your productivity, if you meet certain numbers and metrics. But again, and I think that would also, make us a better leader, when we have and enter those conversations. Just a food for thought.
Yeah, and that's a good thought because as you talked about earlier, we always want to think about that work-life balance, but we have to remember that fulcrum, that seesaw, that balance is not the same for everyone. Some may like to work more, some may not like to work as much. Maybe some differences of how we put that balance together, but being able to work with people so that we understand that. And as I mentioned earlier, listen and dialogue.
Mhm.
And then as we listen, one thing I talk about, break down what we hear and then write it down so we better understand going forward. Doesn't that help us a little bit to understand what's being said before too many times we have assumptions or we go with rumors or even we create expectations that shouldn't be there, should they?
Yeah, a lot of times you can't change everything. It has taken years to try to change systems. I think, I always mention also that it's one person at a time. Who is in front of you? Who are you encountering at this moment in time? And focus on that person in front of you. I know the work that I've done, throughout the years, which has been with social service agencies and with mental health advocacy and connecting people to resources. There are many people that need support and that are struggling. But my job is focusing on the person that is sitting with me and or that I'm sitting with. And that should be my primary focus. And when that person leaves, and we're done with that encounter, then somebody else may come. Then my focus is going to be on this person that is a new encounter. I'm having a new encounter with. So I think it's also, one person at a time, one family at a time. What are and not, overgeneralize things that everybody needs the same thing and that it's a one size fits all, because unfortunately it isn't the case all the time.
It's not. And that ability to listen and learn as we go forward is important in cases like that. And one of the things that when we talk about ideas like this and these concepts, when we mention the words mental health, a lot of people find it negative. When they think of mental health, it maybe even brings out a fear when mental health is for each and every one of us, even in learning and helping ourselves learn, isn't it?
It is. And one of the ways that we can also break down that stigma is through education. Um, Becoming and being a better leader also I would say that it is learning, um, as a way of continued, education and development is learning, what the most common mental health disorders in the US are. Because again, we're not here to diagnose, to treat, or prescribe. But if I have a better understanding of, what a depressive disorder is, what bipolar disorder is, schizophrenia, then if I have somebody who I know, a loved one, something in the workplace, it'll make me a better leader, just having a better understanding what the condition itself is and what it's not. And ultimately, that is empowering, because we could also come back and be part of this person's, support and encouragement, knowing, what bipolar disorder is, bipolar one or bipolar two, and how that disorder can impact, their day-to-day life. And really learning about the myths, debunking some myths that are out there about the most common mental health disorders. So we should really look at, education, and mental health literacy is very important.
I love what you're saying. That education, that knowledge, that health literacy is so important. And when you talk about some of these in bipolar, can you explain to us quickly, just not in detail, but briefly, what is bipolar and what would we see if we were around it?
So there's bipolar disorder one and bipolar disorder two. Bipolar disorder one is, it tends to be more towards, what we would say like mania, impulsivity, uh, a lot of impulsivity and very like active and wanting to do a lot of work. But there are some episodes that could lean towards the depressive side, where then we might not have a lot of energy. So it's a change in mood. And it could happen for a lot of people. It depends, right? It's also individually, characterized individually. But it could happen in a work day where I'm doing great, and all of a sudden I have a lower depressive, that I really low energy. I might not be as focused. Um, some people, complete their projects and they're go, 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 go. Um, if they're experiencing the highs of bipolar disorder, and they're able to complete their projects, and they're like, what else? What's next? I need more, or I can take on more. Um, and so that is but again, we can look into that through the American Psychological Association. Part of the work that I do is training, using mental health first aid, one of the many curriculums, and then also another training that, as a board member, for the International Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers, there's a training that we also, offer for educational purposes.
How would we add that to our school system? We're learning so much now, and kids today are much different than I know when I was young, because there's so much out there. And as I teach at the University of Denver, and I've just taught at DeVry, with all the IT and the AI and ways to pick up information now, how could we put something like this teaching things about mental health better into our school system?
I think making it part of our annual trainings. Um, I've known a lot of school districts specifically just because it is a well-known, recognized curriculum. I mentioned it, mental health first aid, created by National Council of Mental Wellbeing. Um, they have incorporated, some school districts have incorporated bringing that into the school districts and part of their teaching, teacher development courses. So that's a great way. There's actually a youth mental health first aid, and there's an adult mental health first aid. So that is
Wow.
something that can be incorporated as part of their development. And there's actually a workplace mental health first aid curriculum. So that would be a great opportunity to look into that.
But it sounds like there's paths, there's ways to do this, but we may be struggling sometimes with just even getting that information
Mhm.
out to more people. And for the people that we get it out to, the people that we teach, for them to feel safe enough that they can talk about it themselves with the people around them, with their teams. I mean, it sounds like that's also a challenge.
This is a personal belief that the United States has done a great job at every month we have like awareness months. August is National Wellness Month. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. So there's been a lot of awareness campaigns, and that has been great. But I think I may not have the words for it right now, but I really think that you just kind of hear it and it's just there. Oh, another month. Here comes another month. And we've known about these awareness campaigns. So sometimes, most of the times, until it happens to you personally or in closer degree, then you start looking into things because it hasn't hit you personally. You haven't experienced that. And until it happens to you, unfortunately, then again, you're wanting to be more aware. You're wanting to actually have access to those resources. So I would say that we have to be more proactive and not reactive.
Oh,
And
so
and
well said.
being more proactive is right now. I'm going to, you know, be part of the solution as a citizen to know more, get better educated, because it is impacting all of our communities. And may I say, because of research, that it has been said that it is a global crisis, mental health crisis. You mentioned something earlier about when we hear the word mental health, that sometimes it could have like a negative, you know, um, negative thoughts around it. Well, mental health itself, I would say that it's like your physical health. When you do an evaluation, how well am I? How am I doing? And you do all your screenings and your lab work. Well, mental health, you could see it as that, and when you do an evaluation. Talking about mental health and also part of eliminating the fear and the stigma, and then linking it to therapeutic services, psychotherapy, psychiatrist, psychologist, it does not have to result on you exiting that session with a diagnosis. Those professionals are there because they are trained to do the work that I can't do, because I'm not a licensed therapist or clinician. So when I need those levels of support, or when somebody refers you or is trying to encourage you to reach out to that level of support, my invitation is to see it as I'm taking care of my health, period. I want to be well. Right now I'm not well. And in reality, because everything is interconnected, if I'm not well, my thoughts, my feelings, um, my emotions, and my behaviors, if something is off, it's going to impact the rest of my body too. So that should be us be looking at a more holistic wellness. But we've tend to separate my little brain as a vital organ from the rest of my vital organs. And we should see it as
Good
something
point.
vital that needs care.
I like that. I like the things that you're saying there because as I see it, right now, I am doing mental exercises. I am learning from you, Marcella, and that's part of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That is how I see that it's positive. We need to learn the good things, we need to learn to be positive, but mental health is no different than me. I walk 2 miles a day every morning, Monday through Friday. I work out with weights 3 times a week. I do things for my body. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, our mind, our brain needs to be worked the same way because that gives us better mental health, doesn't it?
It does. And a lot of the treatment, for physical health and emotional well-being is get out and walk, get out and see the sun. That will help your a mood disorder, depressive disorders or anxiety. Just being out in nature and going for that walk because you're using all of your body parts, and they're speaking to each other. So they, I laugh because it's like, yeah, I know it's what the doctor always says: go for a walk, but it's true. And then when you
It
do
is.
actually get to take, going for that walk, somehow, things feel a little bit easier because you're able to, kind of clear your mind because you're able to see a different environment as soon as you walk outside of the four walls that you find yourself in. And that's
Well,
why that is important.
well said. Those four walls you find yourself into. And it's so true. And as you're mentioning, the exercise and the walk, I have a left knee that I injured many years ago when my son was young that bothered me. It doesn't bother me as much now that I started walking. And so many people say, well, I can't walk, I've got a bad knee. The walking may actually help. Don't want to abuse it, don't want to go extremes, but nobody's saying that. But my knee is better now after these last 9 months of walking. Of course, I've lost weight, which is good, but the exercise, back to mental health, we don't take our mind and our brain away from it, exercising it and giving it the help quotient it needs, the
Yeah,
good things, the positive things, is good for us.
it is. And a lot of us don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel pain. And there is also a learning experience. It is unfortunate for so many of us that have been, victims of abuse, or other ways of suffering, or physical abuse, and why all this suffering. But in reality, I think it's also part of human nature that we don't want to suffer. And so if there's a little bit of pain, we don't want to feel that. But that's how we build resiliency. That's how you are showing, that you're resilient. That it becomes a strength of yours. We also talk about, courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. You go through it. You move through it, and that there's for a lot of things. That's the only way through. You have to, go through this. You can't go over it. You can't avoid it. But that's where it's painful for so many of us when it comes to emotional suffering or physical suffering. A lot of chronic illnesses bring a lot of suffering too and pain, that could impact your mental wellness, and that mental health. So that's part of the evaluation that I was talking about. Many things around us, external factors that you have no control of, can impact your mental well-being. But if we are making an effort and make it a goal of ours to do one new thing, which they also say that helps our mental health, to learn something, then my invitation would be, again, to look into mental health literacy, and look a little bit more into that.
That learning, that literacy, that learning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you share one mental health myth? We have about 5 minutes left. Could you share maybe one mental health myth, MRTH, myth that most of our listeners would want to stop believing? Maybe the one that does the most harm when it's left unchallenged?
I'd say that it would be that if you pray more, it's going to go away. Just pray harder. Praying is a great protective factor. That means that praying could help you with grounding yourself, meditation. You know, it helps to ground yourself, to bring you back into the present. It's actually a strength to do that. And you also need support when it comes to a medical condition and a mental health, struggle. So that I think it's a big myth. If you just pray about it more, it'll go away.
I so agree with you. And I tell people about that. Yes, get down on your knees and pray. There is no doubt about it. That does a lot of good. It helps us out in so many ways. It helps us receive the support that we need, but we have to get off our knees to get up and get going to make it happen. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true. I'm glad you mentioned that. So we only have a couple minutes left. Have you found that the first step toward healing for a family might be community, or an individual is almost always the same? Someone deciding to listen without learning?
Community is very important. It is a challenge for many of us culturally. I'm a Mexican, born in Mexico, and culturally it could be very challenging to build community because one of the things is you keep to yourself, you keep to your family. Nobody learns about your problems, your struggles. That could be very cultural. But even if that wasn't a challenge, if you put culture to the side, building community is challenging. And you may recall that the U.S. Surgeon General a few years back, really, it was an epidemic of loneliness. That was one of his findings, an epidemic of loneliness, that so many of us are being challenged to build community. And I guess that could be a challenge, but it could be also, let's challenge you to build community. How could you, what steps can you take to then build community? Because it does require us to step outside of our house and step outside of our comfort zone sometimes to start, you know, being, and I think the biggest struggle as that research, talked about is that we are all created for belonging, which is why loneliness is so difficult and people can withdraw and also feel isolated.
I love what you're saying because that part of community, that avoiding that loneliness, the people will go and they'll be party animals and then they talk to person A, person B, person C. I don't mean to make it too, but they'll talk to Jane, they'll talk to John, they'll talk to Julie, they'll talk to whoever, but then all of a sudden they're lonely again. And instead of doing that through unity, the community, and then partnerships, they could eliminate that loneliness all around.
Yeah.
Just kind of opening up our eyes, right?
And this is great, that you and I connected. We can use the platforms that exist to connect. And I think there's an underlying fear of, to be real, to be vulnerable, to actually build those strong connections and to maintain relationships. Which again, with the support, if you see a pattern in you struggling to build and maintain relationships, then why not sit with someone, a therapist, a counselor, spiritual director, to kind of start uncovering that. Why do I find it a little challenging to build relationships and to maintain them? We could trace back to potentially, for so many of us, having experienced trauma, whatever that means to you, because trauma could mean different for everybody. But a lot of these traumatic experiences, and more so the ones that happen in childhood, impact your adulthood if there hasn't been an intervention. And then we grow up as adults and we're struggling to build and to maintain relationships. So there's a lot that can be explored when we start looking into ourselves and be a little bit more introspective and growing in self-awareness.
I love that, and that self-awareness. That's one of the things that, as you mentioned, fear earlier, and that's one of my trademarks. FEAR, false evidence about reality. Because too much of what we hear is not reality. It's somebody's opinion, some rumor, like you're talking about. When you start building that community and unity with people of value, can make such a huge difference in our life. Us listen more, they listen more, and we learn more together in unity, right?
I think we need to stop making it us versus them. It's all of us. When we're
Together.
making it us versus them, I'm separating myself as if nothing could touch me, and that I will be the first person to say I speak from lived experience because I live with a mental health disorder. And one of my brothers, I'm the caregiver for a brother who lives with autism and bipolar disorder. So a lot of my knowledge comes with from lived experience, and also because of the time that I took to educate myself and continue my education, right? And I think my biggest thing is I don't want to keep this to myself. I want more people to know about it because I believe that there is hope and there's healing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We have gone a few minutes early. We started a few minutes late. We have gone a few minutes early, but I love what you're talking about, Marcella. Have, as we close, is there one action our listeners can take this week and then tell us where to find you and your work? I'll go over that a little more in a minute. But from you, just what can listeners take with us this week? I'll get to your quote in a few minutes, but just overall, what can they take with this? And quickly, how can they find you in your work?
Well, I think ultimately it would be to just take some time as far as part of wellness and well-being to look at a wellness wheel and see where how are you doing? You know, really it's about you. How am I doing right now? How well do I feel? Where how am I doing? I think I would want more of us to do that. And what was the other part?
That's good. I love what
That's
you're talking
good.
about.
Okay.
We'll go into how to get in touch to you. Excuse me, in just a second, and I'll let you give you a little more time to talk on that if you need to. But I'll talk about your website. I hope everyone took a picture. I'll mention this again in a minute of your QR codes because that's the best thing. Because
Yes.
Marcella, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for this conversation. This about mental health has reminded each of us today that this awareness is only the beginning. And what we do with this awareness going forward is what will change lives. It's what comes next. The neighbor who stays, the family member who listens, the leader who creates a space. As you mentioned earlier, for someone finally feels safe enough to say they are struggling. That is accompaniment, and that is unity in action. So, for all of us that are listening to this, if today's conversation touched you, something real for you, reach out to Marcella, talk to her, get in touch with her. No one should face their hardest chapter alone. So if you're ready to build more unity, more compassion, and more purposeful leadership into your own community and into your own life, visit us at www.markentrekin.com or www.achievingunity.com. And I'll give you more on Marcella in a second. But before we close, Marcella, I would love for you, as we talked about, to leave our audience with one memorable thought that we can carry with us going forward this week. You have a quote for us we can work with?
I'd say that having open conversations about mental health and mental health struggles are conversations that matter. So please have those conversations.
Have those conversations, talk, give that conversation, that information to people. And then for all of us to listen more in what we do. Because one thing we learned today in every conversation, as Maricela said, one thing becomes clear. Real change from our awareness happens when people come together with purpose and when vision meets action. So I hope you took a picture of the slide earlier in the podcast of Marcela's QR code. Again, is www maricela.catholicmhm.org. You can reach her at Maricela Campa 02 at gmail.com. Well, we took a picture, but if you did not take a picture, this full podcast will be available on YouTube /at Mark Entrekin before the close of business on Friday. So on Saturday morning, Friday evening, you're watch the video as you enjoy your evening beverage, your morning beverage. Watch this again. Get in touch with us. Call Marcella. Talk to her. Go to her website. Because as Achieving Unity continues to resonate with you, follow that feeling. Reach out and connect with me. And don't forget, 303 Focused. Call me, 303-362-8733. I'll hope you'll always remember that on your phone keypad. So thank you all again, Maricela. It's been a pleasure and an honor for your message, for helping us to understand better that business that we build to give us freedom should not be the same one as keeping us trapped, personally or professionally. Any last words, Marcella, before we go?
Just to express gratitude to you, Mark, for inviting me and be able to really use these platforms that keep us connected. Use them, that we should and we could build more communities online too to feel connected.
Thank you so much, Marcella. And for everyone listening, share this with someone else. Let them know about this podcast. Let's make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. So until next week, this is Mark Entrekin with the Achieving Unity Leadership System, reminding you that life is truly what we make it. So let's make it awesome. Together, achieving unity. Let us help everyone around us feel seen, heard, and supported in everyday moments. And as Marcelo said earlier, those moments that truly matter and make life awesome together in unity. Hope to see you all again next week for the next step in remembering unity is not a soft skill. It is a leadership discipline. Until next time, cheers.